Acho que isso que a gente já fez já estão lembrando, inclusive, aquela taça dela.
Você colocou?
Ah, não. Eu acho que ela que colocou. E aquela pasta compartilhada com a gente.
Como que tá a bateria aí? Tá.
Não tá carregando.
Right. Welcome to our third day of workshops on the Cultural Heritage Across Borders program. And the workshop today has been prepared by Rúbia Fernandes da Silva, who's a student of history at the State University of Londrina in Brazil, as well as a beautiful intern at the Historical Museum of Londrina. So, and now I would like to give the digital floors to the team back again.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This part of the workshop was prepared mostly by Rúbia, but me and Mariana are going to present to you directly in English. This will be more a practical approximation towards the treatment and the whole process of conservation and maintenance and safeguard of the institution's collection. So I think you will find it very nice as a bit as it relates, and it is a little bit different from the other two that we have already had. So without any further ado, we will begin it with a little video that show you around the collection room that is temperature controlled and everything, and I will show you here. Can you see it? The video?
Yeah, it's loading. Yeah, I suppose if you, yeah, it's showing.
Okay.
Thank you.
In part of the institution's safeguard paradigm, the practical treatment of photography is related with that previously exposed foundation. By understanding that the maintenance of historical sources as bearers of plural memories is important, we lean towards the importance of access to the narrative space as an act that enhances democratic living in society through a promotion of sensitized look that is historically based, demystifying a shallow and superficial apprehension of political narratives in society. The museum's collection is aggregated in a room prepared to keep the temperature of objects in a constant spectrum between 18 and 20 degrees Celsius, while air humidity stays between 50% and 60%. There are common deteriorations such as yellowing and mirroring of the supports that are caused by constant alteration of these conditions affecting the object, thus the importance of knowing how to deal with manipulation of the collection. The photographs are maintained in sleeves that protect them against the propagation of fungi and contaminative agents in general. It is important that the sleeve is made of polyethylene with a neutral pH, stopping the support's acidification, which accelerates premature deterioration. Inside the sleeves, photographs are grouped from 2 to 6 depending on their sizes, on both sides, and organized in a folder which hangs inside of an anti-flames locker. By doing this, the photographs are protected from a multiplicity of deteriorating agents, possible fire hazards, abrupt temperature changes, fungi proliferation, parasites, and others. It is important to maintain the chemical and physical properties of the photograph in order to have a correct safeguard of collections, and that is achieved by a proper handling of conditions that surround the object. The photographic collection's safeguard initiates at the reception of donations from people that hold historical bonds with the formation of the city, be it through personal living experience, through family relations, or other means. At the moment of donation, it is important to contextualize the object within the institution. From the institution's point of view, it is significant for the object's relation with history to be useful in the sense that it does not matter if it's just a photograph of a family that commemorates some festive occasion. The context must be justified as parallel to some specific historical phenomenon. Is it a family photography that has something to add to the state of the art of the historical time and its historiography? Does it bring a capacity to alter in some way traditional narratives of the past? In a similar way, the museum is an institution that holds a purpose, a point of view that starts from a historical perspective. A similar phenomenon can be explained by the reception of three-dimensional objects. The museum is not a technology institution, in the sense that mere daily objects that nowadays are completely different do not support themselves on the institution's collection policies. They must have some relation to historical aspects from the past, to the relations built between historical subjects that experienced the construction and development of the city and the region as a whole. Not only the preconceived narrative is of importance during the reception and accommodation of the object when it comes to the collection. The reception of the object at the institution implies responsibilities towards the physical aspects of it. Thus, there is a priority for museological handling towards conservation as opposed to restoration of material characteristics. This is so because the act of restoring also comes with an alteration of the original setting, harming the starting point of analysis and interpretation by institution and researchers. With this in mind, there are two kinds of possible photographic objects, the matrix and the reproduction. The matrix is considered the archetype that is most close to the original moment of the act of photographing. When the photograph is as a matrix for the image is too damaged, a copy is made to avoid further deterioration in order to preserve the visual aspects of the starting material conditions. The reproduction, on the other hand, serves the purpose of preserving the object's original characteristics at the limit of the image's representation. When a matrix is reproduced, that representation of an image is continued in a new support that extends the starting point of conservation.
So that is one of the collection rooms that we have here in the museum. As you could see, it is temperature controlled. Its air humidity is controlled as well in order to maintain proper conditions for the maintenance of photography. But not only proper, but also constant conditions of maintenance, because constant alteration of those conditions can be harmful for the physical and chemical properties of the photograph, of the negative film and everything. Now we will read a little bit before we continue on, just to complement some of those ideas, and then we will start the conservational video. Now Mariana will read to you a little text that we have prepared.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the practical treatment of photography, about the matrix and reproduction that was mentioned, and the institution's infrastructure. A part of the institution's safeguard paradigm, the practical treatment of photography is related with that previously exposed foundation. By understanding that the means of the historical sources as bearers of plural memories is important, we lean towards the importance of access to the narrative space as an act that enhances democratic living in society, through a promotion of a sensitized look at that is historically based, demystifying a shallow and superficial apprehension of political narratives in society.
Is the audio okay for everyone? Can you hear us clearly and everything?
I'm fine. I don't know what about others. Could everyone raise your hands that if it's okay? Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. It seems like the majority find the sound good enough. Yeah, Mariam as well. Fantastic. Thank you very much for confirming, guys.
Okay. The photographic collection safeguard initiates at the reception of donations from people that hold historical bonds with the formation of the city, be it through personal living experience, through family relations, or other means. At the moment of donation, it is important to contextualize the object within the institution. From the institution's point of view, it is significant for the object relations with history to be useful in the sense that it does not matter if it's just a photograph of a family that commemorates some festive occasions, like you mentioned Christmas yesterday. The context must be justified as parallel to some specific historical phenomenon. Is it a family photograph that has something to add to the state of the art of the historical times, historiography? Does it bring a capacity to alter in some way traditional narratives of the past? In a similar way, the museum is an institution that holds a purpose, a point of view that starts from a historical perspective. A similar phenomenon can be explained by the reception of three-dimensional objects. The museum is not a technology institution in the sense that mere daily objects that nowadays are completely different do not support themselves in the institution's collections policies. They must have some relation to historical aspects from the past, to the relations built between historical subjects that experience the construction and development of the city and the region as a whole. Matrix and reproduction. Not only the preconceived narrative is of importance during the reception and accommodation of the object when it comes to the collection. The reception of the object at the institution implies responsibilities towards the physical aspects of it. Thus, there is a priority for museological handling to conservation as opposed to restoration of material characteristics. This is so because the act of restoring also comes with an alteration of the original setting, harming the starting point of analysis and interpretation by institution and researchers. With this in mind, there are two kinds of possible photographic objects, the matrix and the reproduction. The matrix is considered the archetype that is most close to the original moment of the act of photographing. Usually this is the negative film. When the negative film is not available, the photograph that has originally been donated is considered so, because normally it comes with inscriptions that concern that object's origin and history. Frequently, those describe a place and occasion, the people and the dates, all information that is useful for the historical setting of that captured moment. When the photograph as a matrix for the image is too damaged, a copy is made to avoid further deterioration in order to preserve the visual aspects of the starting material conditions. The reproduction, on the other hand, serves the purpose of preserving the object's original characteristics at the limit of the image representation. When a matrix is reproduced, the representation of an image is continuing in support that extends the point of the conservation. Yesterday, Luis showed you some of the negatives and pictures they had a different framing, so they were the matrix and the reproduction. The institution's infrastructure. The museum's collection is agreed in a room prepared to keep the temperature of objects in a constant spectrum between 18 and 20 degrees Celsius, while air humidity stays between 50% and 60%. There are common deteriorations such as yellowing and mirroring of the supports that are caused by constant alteration of these conditions affecting the object. Thus, the importance of knowing how to deal with manipulation of the collections. The photographs are maintained in sleeves that protect them against the propagation of fungi and contaminative agents in general. It is important that the sleeve is made of polyethylene with a neutral pH, stopping the support's acidification, which accelerates premature deterioration. Inside the sleeves, photographs are grouped from 2 to 6 depending on their sizes, on both sides, and organized in a folder which hangs inside of an anti-flames locker. By doing this, the photographs are protected from the multiplicity possible fire hazards, abrupt temperature changes, fungi proliferation, parasite, and others. It's important to maintain the chemical and physical properties of the photograph in order to have a correct safeguard of collections, and that is achieved by a proper handling of the conditions that surround the objects.
So right now we're going to start the process of conservational aspects video. So we have put structure a little bit of some items that you can use for the process of conservation. I think that it's gonna be a recorded video and everything. It'll be easy to do it following along. But with that in mind, what you will see in the video, you can adapt it to the necessities of the photographical collections that you have that are personal of your families and everything. Basically, in this video, we explain how to approach a photographical object, having in mind the need to maintain its characteristics in a conservational approximation instead of a restorational point of view. So it is important to keep that in mind as well. We have commented this frequently here, and the work that is done towards the maintenance of those qualities, of those physical and chemical qualities of
I'm very sorry to interrupt, but at least I have lost the sound. Hello?
we're here. Do you hear us?
Yeah, there was a big chunk of your speech that at least I couldn't hear, and I suppose that others might have not heard.
Can you hear us now?
Yeah, it just kind of from time to time the connection breaks down very shortly, but this time it was quite a big chunk of your speech that at least I couldn't hear.
Repeat it then, no problem. If that happens again, just give me a hit, then I'll repeat. So basically what I was saying is that as we have often mentioned this workshop, there is a bigger importance given to the process of
Hello?
conservation.
Hello, again, I can't hear your presentation. Let me check with others. Do you also have the issue with the sound, or is it only me? Yes, Ellen, you raised, yeah, others.
Issue, yeah.
Yeah. You are kind of like, slowing down, lagging, and then your voice is transformed into some robotic sound. So,
Vou conectar no Wi-Fi do museu, pode ser?
Rosana, acho que ela não estava conseguindo. Eu acho que mais um instante. Pede um minutinho. A gente vai desconectar e conectar novamente.
We will reconnect the internet then. Just give us a little minute.
yes, thank you. We'll wait.
Falta eu.
Can you hear us now?
At the moment, perfectly well. Let's see how it goes on when you start speaking. Maybe
Sorry
the
about-
technologies are against us today.
Sorry about that.
It's okay,
I
that happens.
I think we will turn off our camera so perhaps it's a little bit better. I don't know. Might make the data traffic a little bit lighter.
Sure.
So, as I was saying, again, if I have some kind of problem with connection, just hit me up and I'll restart. The basic idea is that you will see, you watch the video with us, we will make some commentaries throughout it, and all of those things, they are completely adaptable to a private sphere, as in you can conduct those processes of maintenance at your own home with family photographs and everything. And there is a big importance to realizing that what we do with photography isn't harmful to it. So we tend to have a much bigger importance attributed to not dealing too much with the photography, because too much conservation can also be something that will end up harming the photography. So those are historical artifacts that are basically lost if you tamper with it too much and everything. So with that in mind, there must be a lot of care and a lot of sensitivity while dealing with those objects. I will put the video on now. Can you see it?
Yes, I can confirm that I can see, so I guess others
Okay.
can so as well.
Yes,
This
we
one
can
doesn't
see.
have audio, so it will be us reading it, Mariana reading it.
Okay. The first material we can use to clean the photographs are white cotton gloves. This glove is recommended because it can be reused and it doesn't harm the photograph. It can be washed with coconut soap because of its neutral pH and it's softer, right? The second material is the blue rubber glove, and it's not recommended when cleaning the photographs because unlike the cotton ones, it can harm the photograph, but it can be used to manage other conservation materials. Okay, this is another material used, a big white cardboard. It's used because of its size, making it possible to capture all the dirt that comes off the photograph during the cleaning process. It needs to be folded on the side in front of you so the dirt won't go to the surface of the table. The third material is the white TK eraser, used because of its color, because it's white, and because it doesn't stain the material. Along with the rubber, we use the grater to grate the rubber, so we can use the grated rub on the photograph's emulsion.
This is how it looks like after grating.
It's like cheese grated. And another material is the brush, similar to a makeup brush, used because of its fine bristles that doesn't harm the photograph. The second material is a wooden stick with cotton wrapped around its end. This material is used to remove the fungus in the photograph. And this third material is an air blower, used to blow the dirt from the photograph and away from you. I don't know if there's a specific name to air blower, but this material is a cotton ball wrapped in cotton fabric, used with the grated rub. In this video, we will show you how to make the material, and we will explain while she's doing it. So we use a cotton fabric and a cotton ball. And to tie both of them, you can use a string, a thread, or a tape. In this case, Rúbia will be using a tape. So you take the cotton and squeeze it a little, so it can be like tighter. And you put it in the center of the fabric, that it's also cotton fabric. And you close it and you tie it a little bit to make a little ball at the end. And you twist the fabric and tie it around with a tape or a string. So she's tightening it a little bit so it can be like
real tight.
And she's using the tape around it to close it so it won't open. Okay, and there you have it. The chemical products used by the museum are the following. The first product is PEC 12. It's a photographic emulsion cleaner. It's responsible for eliminating the stains caused by ink, like the ink in pens and highlighters, eliminating the stains in the emulsion and the back of the photograph.
It is important to note that this product is a little bit toxic. So it is important to, when you use it, you go around to a freshened up place, like where there's air that blows and everything, because if you use it in a closed space, it can cause dizziness and nausea and everything. It's a little bit dangerous to use it, but it's one of the best ones to clean emulsion and other aspects of the photograph.
The second material is called methyl cellulose glue. This component is used to remove the remains of glue, paper, or tapes that are stuck to the back of the photograph, and it's dissolved in water. The third material is the most common one used in these cleaning processes. It's alcohol 70%. The alcohol is used to remove fungus and dirtiness in the photograph's emulsion. The next material is a metallic spatula, used to remove clamps, clips, eliminate the remains of bugs' excrements, and remove the paper glued to the back of the photograph, being used along with the methyl cellulose glue. Another important function the material allows you is to pick up the photographs without damaging it. Therefore, the spatula helps in various types of supports, like flexible negatives and photographic papers. She's showing the flexible negatives right now. To show the example of matrix and reproduction, I will be showing you the flexible negative. The flexible negative is the matrix of the photograph. It has the initial characteristics of the moment of the photograph when it was taken. It's from the flexible negative that we can get the reproductions regardless of the size. It's important to emphasize the exchange of temperature between the hand and the technician and flexible negative. As you can see, the negative is going to fold a little bit, but this happens because the hand is warmer than the paper. In this moment, we can see the importance of conditioning the matrix and the reproductions in a climatized room and with controlled humidity. The second photograph being shown is the first amplification reproduced by the photographer through the flexible negative. As we can observe, this photograph has a framing made by ink, and this framing was used to make the third reproduction. The third reproduction has a better framing, and we can observe from it the difference between the older photograph to a more recent one, which was revealed by the museum's photographic studio. In the third photograph, we can see some yellowing, and in the fourth photograph has a stronger pigmentation. To show you, we have the fourth photography revealed by the museum from the flexible negative. It's bigger and is nearer than the others. The objective is to have the most recent copy, so we won't lose the characteristics and informations of the image. What we'll be showing now is two different types of agglutinative. The agglutinant is a substance used as a glue, therefore it will glue the emotion of the photograph with the photographic paper. The first example we have is a photograph that has albumin as agglutinant. This photograph is more matte, so it doesn't have any shining on the emotion, being considered a printing rather than a revealed photograph. One of the problems we can see in this image is the loss of photographic paper. The second photograph has a more recent process of agglutination. The agglutinant used is jelly. As a characteristic of this photograph, we can see a brighter shining that we can see because of the reflection of the light, different from the previous photograph. The problems we can see in this photograph is the yellowing and mirroring, which is caused by the oscillation of temperature. The third photograph also has jelly as agglutinant, but it shows an incorrect way of warehousing. It's wrapped in plastic without a neutral pH, and the plastic is stuck to the emulsion in the back, making it impossible to remove it without removing the image. To show other examples of deterioration of photographs, we have the image in the right corner. This image has lost its emulsion. An important difference between the two photographs being shown is the information they have. The photograph in the left corner has inscriptions by pen written by the author of the photograph. Its information indicates when the photograph was taken, in this case 1939, and who is present in the image. The photograph in the right corner has some doodles by pen. In this moment, the PAC 12 material we showed you previously is used in case the stains are in the way of information we are seeking. The initial process of cleaning the photography is the process you can follow now in the video. It's important to emphasize that the museum's purpose is not to restore, but warehouse the photographs in the proper way to preserve what is here. The more effective process is basic cleaning begins with the TK rubber graded solution in the back of the photograph.
Quais são os processos?
This is the graded rubber. Throw the graded rubber in the superior left corner of the photograph and assisted by the cotton wrapped in fabric, with circular and gentle moves, you can clean the back of the photograph. It's mandatory that the cleaning must be done from bottom to top and from left to right.
You gotta have a lot of patience when you are doing these processes because they require a lot of handling ability and calm and patience and everything, so you don't damage the photograph.
When we're in the middle of the photograph, we must remove the excess so we can continue to the next half. Assisted by the air blower, blow near the photograph to remove the excess. It's mandatory that you blow against the paper, directing it to your front, so the debris will go to the folded part of the cardboard and not in your direction. The fine bristles brush will help you in this process, so it can be easier to brush the debris to the folded part of the cardboard.
It is important to use the air blower because you can't blow it with your own mouth, because otherwise you will be sending a lot of saliva particles and everything, and that can, of course, affect the chemical properties of the photograph.
You can repeat this process on the other half of the photograph.
It's very important to realize that this is being conducted on a photograph that does not have anything written in pencil, by pencil. So by putting the eraser, it won't erase anything that is written there. But of course, if there's something written there, then you must conduct this on a much more safer procedure around it. Don't go too far. It's never too good to try and conserve the photograph too much, because you can also lose some of the fundamental information that may be stored there. In this case, for example, we didn't use the PEC 12 on the pen markings doodles because since it's such a strong chemical component, it's just better not to use it if you have the option. But if it's inevitable, for example, it makes it harder to analyze the picture or anything like that, that's when you use it.
To bring other examples of photography cleaning in the back, we will show you the removal of glued paper. This process we perform here at the museum, and we won't ask you to have the material, but we thought it was necessary to demonstrate. This process requires a very delicate touch in order to not remove the photographic paper. Inside the teacup, we have the methyl cellulose glue dissolved in water. Assisted by the brush, also with fine bristles, we dip the brush in the substance and we put it where we want to remove the remains of paper glued to the photograph. To demonstrate this piece of paper will be removed. It's mandatory that the glue be applied only in the place where you are working, and the process has to be finished before the methyl cellulose glue dries. Assisted by this spatula, the paper glued to the photograph will be delicately removed, avoiding the removal of photographic paper.
This methyl cellulose glue is pretty nice to use in the photograph because the photograph also has a tolerance to water and everything, and the methyl cellulose glue is dissolved in water. It originally comes as a fine dust, and then you mix it with water and it becomes that glue. So you can use it to be removing other kinds of glue like that, and it dries up real quickly and safely for the photograph as well. And also it has a neutral pH.
Only after the complete removal of the paper glued to the back can we start the process of cleaning with the graded rubber.
It's a very delicate process, especially since it's being dealt with this spatula, which can be a little bit sharp if you use it incorrectly. This photograph has this glued paper because it was donated while the whole collection was in like bigger cardboards. So when the photograph was removed from that support, some of the paper continued in the photographs and everything, and that has to be cleaned up.
Remove the excess of paper with the assistance of a cotton ball. As we can observe, it was possible to remove the rest of glue paper off the photograph with only the methyl cellulose glue and metal spatula.
Some of those conductions on photographs sometimes can be a little time wearing, and then can be perhaps a little bit dangerous for some photographies. So this execution that we just showed you was made purposely for the workshop. So always think like, if you don't need to remove something from a photograph, it's better not to do it. Only if it's something that can in some way, in some time, damage the photograph, then it needs to be removed. Otherwise, there is no need for taking those parts off and everything. The cleaning process is a very delicate process, and it must be dealt with in this exact manner.
Now we will show the cleaning of the photographic emulsion. This process demands caution because it's in the emulsion of the photograph that all the chemical reactions happen. In this step, it's important that the photograph is already scanned in case something damages the photograph, so the original photograph is already saved on the server. We will clean the white edges of the image itself and the image itself. On the emulsion, we will evaluate which are the deteriorations present and if we should put on some chemical products because the emulsion can come off, like on the dark parts of the photograph where the concentration of silver salts are. Therefore, the order of the process is scanning, cleaning the back, and finally the emulsion. The process of cleaning the emulsion is very simple. With the help of the air blower and the fine bristles brush, we can push the debris off the photograph, directing it to the folded part of the cardboard away from us. Be careful so the air blower doesn't damage the photography. After the air blower, we use the brush to clean. In the white edges, I will Rúbia was using the wooden stick wrapped with a piece of cotton. To clean the stick must be dipped in the alcohol and pressed gently against the paper. The alcohol will be used in this part because it doesn't have the accumulation of silver salts. The alcohol will only be put in case there's a fungus in the photograph, being put only in the fungus location.
Eu acho que vai ser uma algodão, só passa na última parte da observação, só passa na parte preta quando tá no fundo, e somente na parte do fundo, você falou. Então, agora sim, os
So since most photographs here in the museum, when they are received, they are already go through a very thorough process of cleaning. So we got some of those that have been a little bit longer since that happened. So there's nothing too much dramatic going on in this picture. Here, as you can see, Rubia is mostly doing a maintenance job on it. So she's like cleaning the edges of the photograph and everything. But it's important to see that there's no fungi, there's no contaminative agent in the photograph or anything. So it didn't need to go through a very thorough process. But for example, if we had a photograph that had fungus in it, then we would have then to use the alcohol on the darker parts of the photograph. That's where the silver salts are concentrated. And that's the most dangerous way to be, the dangerous parts to be being tampered with, because if it reacts badly with the product that you are using, or if you use too much force when cleaning it, it can come out some parts of the emotion, like on that photograph that we have previously showed. So that's the whole cleaning process that's more common here around the museum and everything. Most of the times we don't have to use such strong materials like the PEC 12, and the alcohol is mostly for the edges of the photograph, so that's not too much of a problem. Right now, what I'm going to do is show you guys the two databases that I have commented yesterday, Pergamum and Memoria. We will see how does all of this that we have discussed is disseminated through a research point of view. I had scheduled a little break around now, so I think we can take around 5 minutes of break, if that's okay with everyone, and then we will be right back.
Is the connection good? Can you hear us?
Yeah, it was absolutely beautiful. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Awesome. So we'll see you in 5 minutes.
Yeah, see you.
So we're back. Now we're gonna have a little section that will show you those databases that I have commented yesterday. And beside that, we will also show you how are we conducting this remote experience of internship. So how do we interns, few interns that come to the museum, prepare everything for the other interns that are working from home. Let me open up here. Can you see the image?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So first of all, we have these data sheets that are built upon Microsoft Excel. With them, we can, but for example, this is the data sheet that is related to the family collection. So we have here the registry number of the photographs, and here we have a code that is generated by this software, which is Pergamon, the main database that is used for the insertions. Through here, we can prepare all of this for the interns that are from home. For example, here we have Beatriz, we have Bianca, we have Daniele. They are all interns that are working from home. So we prepare this all for them, and they can go here, pick up the information that we have made available at our Google Drive, and then they can insert the photographs on the database that goes directly to this site, which is the search engine for the museum. I will show you the example of one of those inserted. We'll put a random number here, consult. So this is basically the work that we do on a daily basis, inserting photographs and everything. On more normal times without pandemics and everything, besides this, we would also be taking visitors, taking them through the museum and everything. But lately, it has been resumed to the filling of these data sheets that compose information for researchers and everything. So first of all, the photograph is linked to its kind. For example, is it a photography? Is it a book? Is it something? Because this whole software can insert more than photographies in the database. It can also include, for example, newspapers, three-dimensional objects and everything. We also associate those with the museum and with this sector that we are on right now, which in our case, it's the sector of image and sound. It's associated with the institution, State University of Londrina. It receives the registry number, which is a number that is common to every photography on a material sphere. So this number is, first of all, put on the books that we have here at the museum. These books have we have around 5 books of those, and the registry numbers go from 1 to around 53,000. And we have showed you yesterday some of those books that we use. I don't think if everyone remembers it. If not, we can show it again. That won't be a problem. We also have here a code that associates the location of this photographic collection on that temperature controlled room. So we have a little code here that's composed of room, sala in Portuguese, armário deslizante, which is the sliding locker that is flame protective and everything, the module of that locker, and the part, the folder that the collection is kept upon. For example, this photograph is of the collection of the mayor's office from around the 60s. So its folder has a number and everything in order to keep it all really separate, and easy to access. The conditions of the photograph, in this case, it's not good, it's not terrible, it is regular. So it's on the more or less aspect of things. And also the material conditions that the photographs are kept in the temperature controlled room. Here we have the name of the photographer that is inserted, the kind of image that we are showing. So for example, if we were putting up the negative film of this image, we would put here flexible negative or whatever. In this case, it's photograph. And we have a smaller title here that is attributed to the photograph. So for example, Minas Gerais street and the person that has put that information. Right here, we have a description of the physical aspects of the photograph. So for example, as it's written here, it's a black and white photography that has white edges. It presents a little bit of dirt, it presents a little bit of yellowing, and it presents some stains on the emotion. On the back side of the photograph, there's a little bit of dirtiness, yellowing, and stains. When we say dirtiness, that doesn't mean it's dirty. It's just the fact that the photograph is exposed to the meteorological conditions of every day. Even though it's maintained on the temperature controlled room, it's still in a not ideal state of things, considering the physical and chemical properties of the photograph. So we add this just to make sure it's everything there, but it's been through a cleaning process and everything. And now we have a more thorough description of the image. So for example, if here we had Minas Gerais street, now we have, for example, construction works for the stretch that takes from the Minas Gerais street to the Igapó Lake. So that is a more complete description of this photograph and everything. And also we have the location, the date, the category of that photograph. It's a documental kind of photograph. The technique that was used to review the photograph, which was from the flexible negative. The support, which is a photographic paper. The material, which in this case is jelly, as was presented in that video, with silver salts. The image that is being cataloged is a matrix because we don't have its negative film here in the museum. But if we had it, then it would be a reproduction instead of a matrix, as here. We have the chromatics of the picture, which is in this case a black and white, and the size of that photograph. Right here we have some information about the digitization of the picture, the format that the image is kept on our server, and the resolution that it has. And also the rights to the image, which belong to the museum. That is important because the photograph is uploaded with a scaled down resolution picture, but people can still use it for commercial purposes or anything like that. So it's important to state the rights of the image on the database so people can be aware that they have to go through a relation with the museum in order to use that on commercial purposes or in books or in researches or anything like that. Here we have the data of donations. So for example, collections can be donated, they can be bought, they can be a heritage that that was passed on when someone dies or anything like that. But also in this case of this mayor's office collection, it is a kind of loan. So they do not give the photograph to the museum, but the museum maintains it here in the ideal conditions and everything. But technically, it still is a property of the mayor's office. The date of donation and also the name of the legal document that bonds this loan with the museum and the institution that donated it. And right here is one of the most important parts of this data sheet, that is the the tags that we put. So for example, this photograph is linked with the city of Londrina because it has been taken here. It is related to the mayor's office because that's the collection which it is in. It is related to the photographer, which was Osvaldo Leite. It is related to the 50s, the decade of 1950, and also Minas Gerais Street, public works, and pavimentation. And that's more or less the available tags that can be put here. Some photographies can have only up to around 3 or 4 of these, and there are some that go all the way down here with much information and everything. That is the most extensive part of this software. Following up, we have the second tab here, which is the bonds. In the bonds, we put the image of the photography in a scaled down resolution that goes to the search engine later on. So it's important that it's not too big. It's 300 pixels by 190, because if it's too large, it can be reproduced into for other purposes without the museum's consent. And here we have the copies tab, which attributes another code number to the photographs. So for example, if we have one matrix photograph and we have 3 copies of it, each of those will have a copy code that is relatable to every one of them by this number that is the main number on the software for that photograph. And here there are informations from the donation date, the collection that belongs to, and the institution. And finally, on the link tab, we have the legal document that ties the property rights of the image to the mayor's office and to the Museum of Londrina. And that's basically how the photograph is uploaded to this search engine right here. So I'm gonna give you an example for some research that we can conduct. For example, we have this site open here. It has more than 242,000 registers that are already available. So how do we conduct a research here? First of all, we put up the information unit as the Museum of Londrina, because this search engine is shared with other museums from the north of Paraná, so it's all a common tool of research. We also select the kind of work that we are searching. In this case, it's photography. And we also put the collection that we are going to look for. For example, Arminio Kaiser. And then we can type some kind of terms right here. I will also put the mayor's office because I already have something right here. In this case, I'm putting that number of the photograph that I just showed you, just so it can be a little bit faster to search for it. And this is how it appears on the search engine. We can see here, for example, if we had searched like coffee, many photographs that had relationship with coffee itself would appear here as well. And here we have some preliminary data that we have already put there. For example, the Minas Gerais Street, the location, which is Londrina, the physical description of the image, and the more detailed description of the image as well. And that's how we transmit this manner of preparing research to the grand public. We use this search engine and it works quite well. As Edmeia has put yesterday, there was already, I believe in the last year or yearly, there are around 80,000 visitations to these search engines and everything. And since it has been, since it was started to be used, it has helped a lot of people to conduct researches on the local history, regional history, and historical aspects of all those relations up until this day. So it's a really nice program and everything. I don't think it, unfortunately, doesn't have an English version of it, I believe, but I can pass you all the links after this, so you can kind of take a look, perhaps look up a certain term or anything that you would like to see. And either way, I hope you all have enjoyed. This was the presentation that we have prepared for you today. That's basically the grand scheme of things of how we conduct this relationship between narratives, photographs, practical keeping of those. I like to see how the theory relates to the practical aspects of this, because we have to see theoretically the image and the museum as a part of its responsibility with the acquisition of information for creation of historical narratives and everything like that. So it is all, in fact, related in itself. So either way, we are now open to conversations, to questions and everything like that. If you have any questions, you can also send it through the chat or through our emails, which we sent yesterday. So I hope you all have enjoyed as much as we did.
We definitely did. It was absolutely fascinating to see the tutorial, which kind of again shown how almost Buddhistic the whole process is. You know, as you mentioned, it requires, you know, a lot of patience and kind of like contemplation almost over the objects that you deal with. So indeed, let's encourage the audience to ask the questions, as I assume there are lots of them. For the majority of you, this process is absolutely new, in particular as you managed to show so many details. Yes, perhaps someone would like to post their question in the chat or ask them directly. There was some question from yesterday that Anna raised in hope to hear the answer today. Anna, did that question was answered, or would you like to ask it again? Yeah, Anna is typing. So yeah, so let's wait for the question to pop up or comment to pop up in the chat.
Gabrielle, we're going to put on the videos that we showed you. So, but the last one, since I was narrating live, we're going to record it, the audio, and then we're going to put it to make it available to you. So
that would be fantastic. Although we are capturing now the whole process that you narrated in this video, but probably the one that you will produce or reproduce with your narrative would be a more stable feature in case, yes, you know, we had some outages during your presentation. Yeah, very much appreciated. Right, so okay, Anna is saying, I think it was answered, so I'm okay, thank you. So apparently you've answered that question for her. What about others? Are there any other questions?
If you have any questions about yesterday's presentation or the first day also, you can ask us now. We have some time, I guess.
Absolutely. Maybe before somebody comes up with a question, I would like to ask our group, because I know that someone in this group has already have some experience in the museum, not the museum, a different type of museum, but then this general question to everyone in this group, could you raise your hands if you worked as internships in the museum or plan to do so? It would be interesting to see how many of you have had those contacts with the museum environment, with working. Okay, Anna and Ellen. So perhaps you would like to share your experiences here. If you could tell which museums you worked for and what you did and what was your experience of your work experience. Yeah, Ellen, would you like to go first because you have your hand raised?
Yeah, very happily. Sorry, I'm quite new to Microsoft Teams, so I'm not particularly adept at navigating the interface. Yeah, so I do tours at the Tate and the V&A. I used to work at the Courtauld Gallery and a small heritage site in the east of London, which was fun. I feel like it has the most in common to the Londinium Museum. Yeah, it's been interesting. I think mostly I've been in outreach and education, so this has been really interesting to see a very hands-on approach. But I guess I also did have a question. So I wanted to ask, in your video, we saw a lot of your VCRs, so the old kind of cassette tapes. How are you adapting to changing technology and the older formats that are slowly becoming obsolete? Is this something that you'll be updating in the future?
We're going to share with them so they can all understand.
Thank you.
Wait a second.
Edmeya has said that through a project, they were already remastered, I think. They are in a digital form now. We have the VCRs and everything, but it's just kept there. But all the information that we have there is already on the server, so it's all online.
Awesome, thank you very much.
Some of it has also been inserted, uploaded in the Pergamon database as well. A project which we did not take part, but it already happened.
Desse projeto foi produzido catálogo. Então a gente tem catálogo com resumo de tudo, de cada fita, de cada vídeo. De vídeo e áudio, né? Cassete e VHS.
In this project, that the cassette tapes and the smaller tapes, they were it generated a catalog for the museum in order to aid researchers that searched for example, for primary sources for oral history and everything like that. So it was a really nice project that generated this whole support of research and everything. Gabriel, you were speaking, but your microphone was off.
As usual. Right, thank you, Ellen, for sharing your experiences and asking the question. And perhaps Anna would like also to say a few words about her own experience of the museum that you worked for.
Yes, hi. I'm not going to be typing this because it would take me forever. Basically, I didn't work, I worked at a museum, but I didn't work as a curator. I worked as a tour guide and as a social media content creator. So I had that different experience than yours, which is why these workshops have been so interesting for me. So thank you so much for putting it together. And yeah, basically my experience was my work related more into coming up with new experiences and making the museum a new experience for the audience. So coming up with events and different ways to interacting with all the content, because for context, I worked in the only Art Nouveau house in all of Europe to be completely intact since 1902. So it was quite the experience because everything that was there was built in 1902. So yeah, that was my experience.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
Here in the museum, since there is kind of constant lack of staff sometimes and everything. We interns have basically experienced every single part of the museum, like from tour guiding to insertion on the database and cleaning process of photography and everything. So I think that on our side that it's quite interesting because we have accumulated all this knowledge and experience on those aspects that in some ways this lack of staff and everything has a little bit more or less aided us in our construction as professionals and everything.
Can I ask, I'm really curious and open to the floor, Anna, as well, if you have any insight, but I often find that museum visitors often really latch on to something. There's one story or one object that they really love. Do you guys have a particular incident with a visitor that really sticks in your mind?
Let me ask the other guys. Ela tá perguntando.
There has been many experiences which we remember fondly. To give an example from me, there was this one time that a little kid was here. He was from one of the schools that brought people and everything, and he saw a photograph that is kept outside of the museum on the outside part of it, on the outer exhibition, and he recognized his grandfather in the picture. So he was all excited and everything. He took pictures with it. We made a little post for him on Facebook and everything. It was really nice. But there's also some common stories that our buddies have shared with us. Yeah.
Oh, and Rúbia was saying that there's a, I don't know if you remember, but there's a barber chair in the long-term exhibition, and she said that one time a woman came here to see it, and she asked Amaury, because he takes care of the three-dimensional objects, and she started crying before seeing the chair because it belonged to her grandfather. So she was very emotional to remember and to see that it's preserved here at the museum. So it's very touching, I think.
Yeah. It's really common that people come here and they already have experienced this past of the institution, the museum, which worked until 1982 as a railway station. So there are many people that come here on more normal times, outside of the pandemics and everything, and they sometimes when they are a little bit older and everything, they relate to mainly, for example, the train, and they sometimes they just simply start crying because it's too fond for them, like remembering when they were quite younger and with their parents and everything. I already had one time, I was making a guided tour visitation for a school, and this lady was checking out the train and everything. I let her inside and everything. And then when I was talking to the students, preparing them, like as in the safety measures of entering the train, you can't like simply go inside the train. You must put some fabric beneath your shoe in order not to damage the conditions and everything. While I was instructing the students, this lady just came out like bursting in tears from the train, and I had to like interrupt my presentation for them and everything. And she just like started talking with the students and everything, and it kind of complemented what I was saying, before that, that was the more effectual side of heritage that it has, as in this difference between rationalized, scientifically conducted historiography to a more sensitized approach to heritage as it relates to this that is a more subjective approach, which is the feeling of the person, like the nostalgia and everything. I mean, there are many stories.
Rúbia was saying that we have this side, the elder people come here and they get very emotional because they remember their past. But there are also kids who they come here and they see the objects that we have, and they remember that their grandmas have it at home, like cooking pans and fogão a lenha. Also clocks and all kinds of objects that we have here, and they remember, oh, my grandma has it. Old televisions, radios. Yeah, and it's constructed a relation with the past of the children also, because they can relate to the objects even though they never had, or they're not so old to
to have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I find the way that different generations and to different types of museum, how people respond, really interesting. So thank you.
You're welcome. It's really nice when we have a clash of generations on the exhibitions. For example, we are with a room full of students that are like 6 or 7 years old, and then seniors come inside and talk to them, and they like show, I remember this, and back in those days and everything here was dirty and everything. So it's also nice when we have this like breaking of the fourth wall kind of thing. Anyway, thanks for your question.
Thank you.
It was really nice.
I would like to build, if I may, into that you just said, into the difference between generations, because in the museum where I worked at, I call it a museum, but really it's a house, and we had there the first telephone to ever arrive in the city, and it was very, very old. I mean, I'm talking about 1912, and also the first light bulbs to ever be like the first light to work with electricity. It was there at a house, and just seeing people reacting to the first telephone and the first light bulbs, it was amazing. And also my first reaction, because when you think about 1912, you don't think about electricity, you don't think about phones. So seeing that there really shows you that even at that time they were still quite advanced in comparison to today. I mean, sorry, not today, I mean in comparison to what we think they used to be, you know?
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a shock, right? To kind of transpose yourself to this reality through the presence of this object, right? And that's a very recurring feeling when we go into the collection rooms of three-dimensional objects. That many objects like just have this proper aura upon themselves. For example, there is a sword that was used by officers here in Brazil in the time of the revolutions of 1932, when there was a kind of a political coup, and the first Brazilian dictator assumed the government in 1932, and in 1937 he had a new constitution, which was with traces of fascism and everything, and he went on up until 1945. So we have some of those objects from that time, like with this militaristic approach and view of world. So to see those swords and everything, for us, it's kind of, looks a little bit dumb, to be honest, because it's a sword, like it doesn't relate to our own experience. But it makes sense because it is a quite symbolical object. So it is really nice, as a matter of fact, to relate to this, kind of like you did with the first light bulb and telephone and everything.
When we were talking about like the first light bulb and everything. And you may remember that in 2019 we had a piece of the first computer that we had in Londrina in the city, and it's so big that it needed a really big room to put it in. And we have the reserva, like the archive room, and it has like a lot of things, like a lot of objects, and it's really sad that we can't put everything to the public because we don't have enough room to put it in. But it has really interesting things like the sword and like an armor, I think. Many old TVs also. Oh, we have some bones from indigenous tribe, from a Kaingang tribe, and they came here to reclaim it, but it didn't work. It's still here. But they were not happy that the bones were here at the museum because they thought it was disrespectful, I think.
They came here to do a little ceremony of a symbolical burial of the person. But it's not just any kind of bone. It's a bone that's related. It's a bone that's related to the phenomena of sambaquis here in Brazil. That is a phenomenon that comes from prehistorical times, when the hunters-gatherers, they were around river banks and everything. They would collect shells and stuff to eat from the river and everything, and they would accumulate the leftovers and everything behind them, so that created great mounds of stuff on the coastlines. So that is a phenomena that happens all along the coastline of Brazil, and many of those mounds have like human bones within them and everything, and that is one of them here in that was left over here in Brazil. It comes from a sambaqui.
Thank you. Speaking about the emotional attachment, to those objects, have you or your families donated any photography to the museum? Are you the donators or just curators? Not to undermine the importance of your role, but I'm interested in, whether you are also kind of donating anything from your family albums.
I'm not from Londrina, so I don't have anything that would relate me to the history of the city. So no, not me. I'm gonna ask you.
Me as well. I came from the north of Brazil. I'm like the place I was born. It's more than like 2,000 kilometers from here, so I don't have too many ties with Londrina. I came in 2007, but as a matter of fact, no. But there was the previous director of the museum. She has a whole collection of her family that she has donated here, and also one of the technicians, some of the technicians, the librarian and the curator of the three-dimensional sectors. They have donated parts of their history and everything, like the time when they went to the university, and it was another time period and everything. They have those memories donated and everything.
Okay. Rúbia said she has an uncle who her uncle's uncle donated an object to the museum, but not her directly, but it was part of her family because she's from here. I think she's the only one. Ela é a única daqui? Você é do Guilherme?
Não, eu sou desde 2007, só.
I think Rúbia is the only one who's actually from here.
I see. Any other questions? Again, just to encourage, you may type in your questions in the chat.
Or if you want to share like experiences at museums or something like that, we're glad to hear.
Absolutely.
Diz para ela que muitos estagiários, muitos mesmo, estagiários que passaram por aqui, acabaram fazendo suas pesquisas, de TCC, depois mestrado, doutorado, tematizando museus ou algum objeto do museu. Algumas pessoas fizeram museologia e algumas atuam diretamente com essa questão, trabalhando em museus.
Okay, it may have said that some interns that worked here, like many interns, they had their thesis, like TCC.
Graduation conclusion paper.
It's the paper that we have to write when we're finishing the graduation. They were all about the city or the museum itself, and their master's and doctorate degrees. They were also about the city and the museum. And some of them went to had a museological degree, and they work with museums because they had a very good experience here, and they went on this line.
It's a sort of influence that the internship generates upon the students of history, because the State University of Londrina doesn't have a museology degree discipline and everything, but it's a very, as I said in that first day, it's a really nice extension of the university, the linking between practical and theoretical approaches and everything.
Can I ask then, if there isn't a museological studies program, what do you guys study? Are you in history or arts, or kind of where would you situate yourselves?
I am in social sciences, so it's like anthropology, politics, and sociology, all in the same course, but the rest.
I study history. Rúbia studies history. Luis as well. Luis is on the master's degree right now, and Mariana has completed design studies, and she is on the history master's program right now.
Amazing, thank you. I'm always curious to hear. I have a background in art history and also data science, so I love to hear what people are doing and how they're kind of bringing things together.
Everything complements each other in this institution.
And then I would like to ask you the question, because art history and data science is just a very interesting combination. How did that actually help you or not help you in working with the museums?
No, it was incredibly helpful, to be honest. I think as soon as museums hear you have a data science background, they immediately want you on board, because there's such a skills gap there. A lot of people don't have that expertise. Unfortunately, it was due to open in May 2020, so it was cancelled. But I designed an exhibition for the Museum of the Home in East London, which was all about kind of how you analyze people's reaction to things within the museum. So it was kind of part interactive game, part digital survey. So I think it's quite an interesting little niche.
Esse aqui é nicho interessante, que é sobre observação, acho que das pessoas.
Simulação de dados e ciência da informação.
Sim.
Acho interessante, né? Tipo, história da arte.
Fala que a gente tem aqui a arquivista, né? Que a gente tem pessoas formadas em biblioteconomia e arquivista.
Tem
técnicos.
That's nice, because I think that data sciences also relates to some of the staff that we have here. We have the librarian, which in Brazil you take a course in the name in Portuguese is biblioteconomia. It's probably something like library lawology or something like that. It basically is a branch of informational science. So it also complements a little bit, like you have said, like the expectations of how the data is being received and everything, how to work upon that and everything. And there's also the other the other staff member that is responsible for the three-dimensional collection, he has a degree in how do I translate this? Archaeology, like the science of archives and everything. And he also has this informational science approach to things, and it probably complements the whole scheme of things here as much as your case, I believe. Really nice. And that's a really nice combination, art history and data science. That sounds nice.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, Edmeia said that there used to be a museologist here a long time ago.
Mas ela foi para outro setor.
She went to...
Não se deu muito bem com as pessoas que trabalhavam aqui.
Okay, she went to another sector because she wouldn't get along with the staff that we have here. Like, apparently she wasn't very nice. And I think since then we haven't had a museologist here. Não teve mais museólogo, né?
Não. Depois só teve essa. Fala para Kristen, para Gabriel, que o que o museu agora vai, a partir do ano que vem, talvez ele tenha também um projeto que se chama residência, como a residência da medicina, chama residência técnica, que aí seria uma forma como se fosse um mestrado, mas que a pessoa faria aqui dentro do museu, por 2 anos.
Okay. And May is saying that starting from next year, we're gonna have a project here that it's like a residence, like it's sort of a master's degree, but they are going to work here. It's like an intern in medical school, that they work at the hospital and everything, and the person would work here as a resident, I think. Yeah.
Fantastic. I would also like to ask a little bit, ask you to expand a bit on your relationship with the ASAM, Association of Museum Friends. I don't think you've touched much on them. There was a lot of a lot of information about your work with the municipality, with kind of local people, but then there is another important institution of the ASAM, which is, as far as I understand, also is composed of citizens who are interested in supporting the museum.
Yes.
Okay.
Então, vamos lá. Eu não vou falar tudo de uma vez, vou responder. Essa associação surgiu em 1986, 6 ou 9. Surgiu na década de 80. 89.
Porque o museu veio aqui em Terceiro.
Em 1989. E ela surgiu e ela é formada por pessoas da sociedade que são preocupadas com o museu e gostam de atuar no museu. E aí diz que no começo a relação foi muito complexa.
Okay. Edmeia said that it was created in 1989, Assam, and it's built, like you said, I think it's with people that were in a society that were worried and they wanted to take care of the museum. And she said that in the beginning it was a complex relation, and then she's going to explain it to me and then I'll explain it to you.
Essas pessoas, elas são membros, são das famílias que são chamadas pioneiras, e que a gente tem um problema com o conceito de pioneiro, porque aqui só se entende pioneiro como sendo aquelas pessoas que vieram e se constituíram financeiramente, enquanto que são esquecidas as pessoas que vieram e trabalharam também, mas não se enriqueceram.
Okay. The families that participate in Assam, especially in the beginning, I think, they are all families from the pioneers. And in here we have a problem with the word and the concept of pioneer, because it was pioneers was only the people who thrived economically. So the rich people that sort of built the city, they were here in the beginning, and the rest of the people who wasn't in a good economical place, they didn't have a lot of money, they are not considered pioneers. Is that it?
Yeah, in this traditional narrative, traditional sense of the word and everything.
Yeah. So that's why we have like a problem with the word pioneer.
E que essas pessoas, elas vieram com a seguinte concepção: elas queriam que o museu retratasse a história delas, das famílias delas.
And they wanted that the museum would portray the history of their family. So it wouldn't be like, Londrina's museum about the city and everything that happened in the city and how it was built. It would be about the families that built the city and how they were so great, and and how they were so amazing to have built the city on their own, like there was no one else helping them, like the people who worked in a more inferior jobs.
Então, durante muito tempo, essas pessoas fizeram parte da ação, mas e tinham um conflito muito grande com a direção do museu, porque o museu é da universidade e eles queriam ter poderes aqui dentro.
So these people and these families, they had conflict with the museum's directors and with the directors, because they wanted to tell the museum what they had to do, but the museum doesn't belong to them. They didn't create it. The museum belongs to the university. So we have a different speech, like discourse about the history of Londrina than what they had.
Mas que isso passou, muitas dessas pessoas já morreram. Então, as pessoas que ficaram na ação são pessoas que têm uma outra relação com o museu, têm uma outra compreensão do que é o museu, e que hoje o trabalho é feito coletivamente não, que hoje eles são verdadeiramente parceiros do museu, e que é interessante porque a ação é uma instituição jurídica, e ela nos ajuda a captar recursos, porque nós, como sendo uma instituição estadual, pública, nós não podemos concorrer a editais.
Okay. It may have said that many of the people who were first in Assam, they are dead already, so we have like a change because then other people entered Assam, and they have a more peaceful, I think, relation with the museum, like with the directors and
a whole different historical perspective, not centered on pioneerism and everything like that. A much more healthy relationship with historical tendencies and trends and everything. That's something that's more to the past.
E é uma instituição jurídica.
She said it's a juridical, judiciary institution, legal institution, I think, and they help us
gather resources.
Gather resources and participate on editais and
captação de recursos.
Public projects for budget reception for projects and everything. So it's kind of a linking between municipality and the state sphere.
It's because the museum belongs to the university, and it's a state public university.
Como é o caso do que está acontecendo com esse projeto com King's College, que o museu.
This project, it wouldn't happen if we didn't have Assam, because they had the link. It was much easier to go through them than the university, because the university would take like a lot of bureaucracy, and it would make it a lot harder for us to get it. So Assam is very helpful when it comes to gather resources for projects.
And most of its members have some kind of relationship with people of the university. For example, there are retired professors that compose the Assam. For example, the previous director of the museum before Dimea was Regina. Regina is now a part of ASAM. So she retired from the university after her mandate as director, and then she went straight on to the ASAM in order to help with projects, with the whole dealings between institutions and everything.
Você quer fazer essa pergunta?
Não, o dela e depois.
Pode falar que você quer fazer algumas perguntas?
Isso.
Edmeia would like to ask you some questions also, if that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, if that's, I mean, it depends, you know, whether you want to actually to continue this as an education, as part of an educational program, or is there something that you want actually to discuss in terms of our collaboration? If that's the latter, I would suggest that we discuss that outside this meeting.
Yeah, ok. Ela perguntou se for alguma coisa sobre os estudos e, tipo, sobre o que a gente está fazendo aqui. Ela, tudo bem, mas se for alguma coisa, tipo, para falar sobre a relação...
A colaboração.
A colaboração, a gente falou pra gente fazer tudo.
Tá. Não, eu ia só confirmar os dias, eu queria confirmar os dias do curso que elas vão oferecer, porque a gente tem que fazer a divulgação aqui.
Okay. She just wants to confirm the dates of the courses that you're going to offer us, because we don't...
Yes, definitely so. That's a good question, because that will be also serve as a reminder for the participants, other participants. The next workshop will be on the 5th of July, and it will be run by Dr. Kristen Schuster. Her topic is creating museum data. And the last workshop will be run by me on the 15th of July. And where we will do something quite different. We will talk more about the experimental side of museology. Of course, we'll focus on historic image, just, you know, to complement your workshop series, but we'll talk more about the speculative design for museology.
That's really interesting.
Awesome.
Looking forward to it.
Now you really set a high barrier for us, so we'll have to actually do our best to match your quality.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I mean, we're done. If no one else has any questions or anything, I think that's it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Again, I suppose that we can encourage people to contact you by emails after this meeting. And in the meantime, I would like to thank you all the team. You are fantastic, guys. Thank you for sharing your stories and experiences. And we'll meet you very soon on the 5th and 15th of July.
Okay.
We thank you for this opportunity and for being good listeners and making interesting questions and everything. I hope that you all have enjoyed it, and thank you very much for the participation. We are looking forward to the next collaborations and to the next workshops, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.